The Fantasmagorium show presents Guns, Martinis, Gadgets, and Guns. We continue the roller coaster that is seeing No Time to Die. Going to assess our favorite James Bond henchmen, and tonight we feature the second Sean Connery James Bond film, From Russia with Love. I am Scotty, and my opposite number is Catherine. How are you doing, Kat?
Excellent. Looking forward to today's episode.
I know, I'm jazzed. I just watched it like an hour ago. I finished watching it, and I had to double check to make sure that it promoted the next Bond properly, because I know there's a James Bond that says next time James Bond will return in. It was correct this time, and I'm waiting for the one when it's not.
That's true.
What's going on?
I watched the movie twice to prep for this.
Okay. And?
Good
stuff. Did you like it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It holds up? It still follows? You had heard that there are a bunch of people who really, really, really like this movie. It is their favorite. And of people of high regard.
That's true. Timothy Dalton, Daniel Craig, Sean Connery, and director Martin Campbell. They all cite this as their favorite Bond film.
Well, speaking of Martin Campbell, we do have an interview with Martin Campbell. Oh, hey, Steve, you're here.
Hi. Hello. I didn't want to interrupt what was going on there. Thanks
I was kind of letting Scott have the lead and wondering when he was going to say hi to Steve.
No, I know. I'm sorry. I'm misanthropic. I didn't see you there, buddy.
Don't mind me. I'm just over here in the corner pushing buttons.
I'm excited.
So what I'll do is I'll stay. There's not a lot of news, but I'll stay for a couple of these quick news items, and I'll pop out, let you guys do your thing, and then I'll come back for the chat.
Cool.
Awesome.
Cool.
So, Kat, do we want to get into the first item?
Yes.
Okay. Shoot.
All right. So last week we were talking about the fact that No Time to Die has to make an insane amount of money just to break even, and how it seems logical over the past week. A lot of different trade publications have been suggesting, they're probably going to delay it. Pundits have been saying the same thing. They're going to have to. And I'm thinking, they're getting to the point of no return, because compared against Skyfall, which made $1.1 billion, that movie had two things going for it, which this one doesn't. One, it was a completely accessible film. You did not need to see the previous two Daniel Craig films. You're in, you get it, it's fine. It also is a much shorter film. It comes out to about 2 hours, 20 minutes. And most people leave before the credits, so it's probably more like 2 hours, 13 or so. And reportedly, No Time to Die is 2 hours, 43 minutes. Just very long. It's going to scare away a lot of casual fans. Going off the trailers, you clearly need to have a lot of prior knowledge of the Craig era. And to ask casual fans that, by the way, you need to remember plot points from the previous movie, which was 6 years ago now, that's kind of a tall order. And when a shorter movie that's completely accessible can make $1.1 billion, which was surprising considering that Bond's not big in the U.S., I just don't see, pandemic notwithstanding even, that this movie would get those types of numbers with those things working against it. So I think it's actually more likely that they might just say, screw it and go for it, because it seems like if they delay it any further, they're just guaranteed to lose money. And anyway, it seems like it's going to be a loss no matter what they do, unfortunately.
I have a question. So to carry the movie, it costs about $1 million. Let's say it's cost them $1 million to carry the movie for another 9 months. Do you think it's worth it for them? Do you think this is it plays into the calculation, spending the $1 million, another $1 million to carry the film and delay it to 2022 in order to recoup potentially tens of millions? Or is it not even going to be an issue whether they release it now, or then it's just never going to recoup the money they need anyways?
Right. That's kind of where I'm at. Now, I imagine that the break-even point for Universal as international theatrical distributor is probably a lot less, because they didn't have to pay for the production budget and marketing and all that.
Right.
But I think it could potentially...
The potential, I'm sure she will carry on.
I think it can make the money that it needs to for Universal to get back their money. Looking at what other films have been making lately, Bond franchise does carry enough overseas that I think they can get some of that money back, or most of it. But MGM, it's not going to happen. even if everything were back to normal, perfect next year, they're not getting billion-dollar numbers on this. I just don't see that happening anyway. And it's like, yeah, you're up against the point of no return. So,
yeah. Scotty, what do you think?
I don't know if they're going to, I don't want them to delay it. But I don't think they're going to recoup their money no matter what. And so I think they'll hold firm. I'll bet you $2 they'll hold firm on the, but then there's the state of the world and people are scared.
They did release a spot about 2 weeks ago, though.
I'm sorry?
They did release a new TV spot about a couple weeks ago. So certainly they spend a lot more time than we do thinking about these things. So
this is true. Oh yeah, no, I'm wearing a cheap suit. So like I got nothing. I didn't make this movie. I'm anticipating as a fan. I want to see it when they say it's going to be released. But at this point, I was saying to Steve earlier today, I don't believe they're going to release it. All they did was make a trailer. So I think that they'll run with it. I think they'll run with it, and they're going to take a loss no matter what.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to not spend the another $1 million in carrying costs. Release the film. What do we? I'm sorry. What was the date?
October 8th.
October 8th. So by October, we should hopefully we'll know
by September.
Hopefully we're in a place where people are going back to the movies. But I think one thing that will help is that it's not going to be day and date release, right, on some streamer.
That's true.
So if you want to see the new Bond movie, you're going to have to go to the movie theater to see it. At least for the first, whatever the theatrical run is, 45 or 90 days.
Right.
So that has that going for it. It probably makes sense to just not spend any more money than you need to. Market. I think all the marketing's out there. I don't think they need to do any more marketing, except TV spots and stuff like that, which were already preset anyways.
Mm-hmm.
I think they do that, release it, and then let's move on to the next one, I suppose. And I guess dovetailing into our next topic about a next one, or the possibility of a next one, Martin Campbell would consider making another James Bond film. Kat, what do you think about that?
Yes, make it happen. He twice resurrected this franchise brought it back from the dead when it was dead and buried. And he did say that the one condition he has is that if it would be the first outing for the new actor, so he can help set the tone. And it's like, the old saying goes, everything comes in threes.
Right.
His two Bond films were very well received and gave it the resuscitation that it needed. So why not? And I think they'll really need that after this, because so many people are just like, it almost feels to a lot of people like No Time to Die is already come and gone in a weird way. And it's like, they'll want to have a big royal return, because I don't think they're going to get their big royal return to theaters with this movie as much as I would have wanted that. It'll definitely be with Bond 26.
So just to refresh my memory, I believe it's GoldenEye and Casino Royale.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So that's Daniel Craig and then Pierce Brosnan, right?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Two of the highlights of the last half of the franchise.
Yeah, that's awesome. Scotty, let's get your thoughts on him coming back to direct a possible next chapter.
Well, it's funny, Kat, you say good thing, or they come in threes. I would love to have a Martin Campbell trilogy of different Bonds. I think that would probably be the first director who'd actually work with three different Bonds. That would be kind of a cool triple header. And Martin Campbell has done exceptional work in both GoldenEye and Casino Royale. Those are two of my favorites of this half of as I've existed on this planet, James Bond films. So, yeah. Although don't call it dead and buried. It was Timothy Dalton, then Pierce Brosnan. You're giving my Dalton a bad name.
Dead and buried. It had been 6 years, and it was taken forever to get things back on track. And then after the Cold War ended, people are like, is this relevant anymore? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, they needed to come back and show, yes, he is still relevant. And I by the way, I think that's largely what they're doing with the new movie too, in terms of their themes.
Oh, absolutely. And and once I thought about it, instead of erupting furiously, I was like, no, right. Yeah, no, they were caught up in legal disputes because Dalton was supposed to be in a third one. And it just got mired in MGM legal disputes. MGM or United Artists, one of the two. And so, yeah, revitalizing the series is great. And I think it would be an interesting finale to the trilogy of Martin Campbell. And then also to sort of separate, because I think he would tonally separate from the Craig era, and that would be really, really interesting. He's a Bond fan, and yeah, I'm all for it. Please.
While promoting his new movie, The Protege, Campbell took part in an Ask Me Anything session on Reddit and was asked if he would consider doing another Bond film. He expressed his interest in directing Craig's replacement. Said, "Yes, I would. I love the franchise. And it would be with a new Bond, which is always interesting, especially given my two Bond movies had different Bonds," he wrote. So, yeah, it looks like he's down for it. Do you think they'll tap him? It makes sense, right?
It does.
For the franchise and
he's still
grab him to do this?
Yeah, and he's still making movies. I mean, he hasn't retired or anything. So, and I think of course, the producers at Eon will never say it, but I think they know they need a big revitalization after all these barrage of delays and all of that. So I think it would make sense. I mean, that they would tap him. And I assume they do pay attention sometimes to what's going on in the fan base, so to speak. So I think they know that Martin Campbell is one of the favorites, and yeah, why not?
Right. Scotty?
Well, also, what if they brought Danny Boyle in? No.
Right.
Yeah, it would be the production, and also I've got my mind racing now. Kat, who's your next Bond? Who do you have?
Oh, I was going to ask that question. Good, Scotty.
I was on the Idris Elba train for a long time, but I don't know if he'll do it now, given that everything that's expected of actors and for being, the Bond actor, all the physical training and all of that, and the amount of movies they want him to lock down to a contract. But other than that, I really don't have a particular preference, because even when they announced Daniel Craig, it's like I had seen Layer Cake. I'm like, okay, good movie, but I didn't. That's a completely different character than the types that James Bond would be. And again,
yeah, but he had a gun and he wore a suit.
Wow, and then going to the point about how whoever the new director is going to set the tone. So depending on what the tone is, completely changes your interpretation of what the actor would be. As far as I know, as far as what I want from a new Bond, I think I'm done with the whole mopey, depressed Bond that Craig's been playing, even though I think he's really good at it. I would like a Bond that's more of a throwback to Brosnan or Connery, who really clearly enjoys his life, who's not depressed and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I could take a Roger Moore right about now.
So what about somebody I think he was a runner-up at one time to Daniel Craig, I believe, was a Henry Cavill.
That's true. Martin Campbell said that he auditioned for it, but he liked Craig better. So I think Henry Cavill could potentially still be right for it if he's interested. But
what about somebody like a Tom Hiddleston?
I've always had a hard time picturing that. What do you think, Scott?
I'm okay with Tom Hiddleston. Have you ever seen The Night Manager?
I did. I wasn't that enamored with it.
I love Hugh Laurie, so I watched it, and I had to get around Tom Hiddleston, but when I finally came around, I was like, he could be a Bond.
I think Cavill would be a good Bond.
Well, the Man from U.N.C.L.E. is great.
Yeah.
And I think it would, but I don't know if he's too heavily associated with Superman, but again, same thing with Hiddleston. I don't know if he's too heavily associated with Loki.
But do you think that would hamper?
Well, yes, they wouldn't let Jim Caviezel be Superman because he had already played Jesus. So it does affect the public perception and how these people will be received by the public. And also we don't know what's going to happen at the end of No Time to Die. Maybe James Bond dies.
Well, maybe
there has been people have been concerned. They think that the mantle of 007 is being shifted over, that there's going to be a different 007.
I think that's true. I think we're going to get that, but I think it's going to be it'll be at the beginning of the movie and switch back, right?
I hope.
We'll see.
Well, as far as going forward, when they do Bond 26, it'll just be a new continuity, because otherwise it's not Bond 26 if it's not the character James Bond,
Right.
I've had
Right.
this running theory for a while that I would love to see a Bond movie where James Bond dies at the end, but at the end credits, it still says James Bond will return. Because it's James Bond.
Right.
It doesn't matter. He's coming back. If you can call a Marvel movie Endgame, then you can kill James Bond.
But just getting back to Martin Campbell, I think that would be great. His new movie, The Protege, with Maggie Q, is a spy thriller. It looks pretty good.
And Michael Keaton.
And Michael Keaton. Yeah, so it looks great. So I think that's it for the news. I guess you guys can dive into your review and then run down your list of henchmen. So I'll pop out for a while, let you guys do your thing, and I'll come back to go over the chat with you guys. Thanks for letting me do the news with you.
Thanks, man.
All right. We'll see you soon.
See you, buddy. I want to do the henchman first. Forget what Steve said.
All right. You want to go first?
Well, yeah. Okay, so now here's what I got. Do you have them in order?
Yes, I listed them. I came up with 30 names because
Yes.
I just favorite to least favorite. The most I can remember, the ones I thought at least had for some reason I could actually remember, as opposed to other ones. But yeah, I came up with 30 and I listed them. So yeah.
Okay, then going from worst back up to best, go.
All
I'm
right.
I'm gonna tell you because I only have 14.
All right. In last place, I put Hans, who's Blofeld's bodyguard. You only live twice. Sort of like a knockoff Red Grant type thing. Another, big blonde body, whatever.
Okay.
29th place, Milton Crest, the sidekick to Robert Davi's character and License to Kill. 28th. Okay, 28th place, I put the twins, the knife-throwing twins from Octopussy.
Nice.
That was like a Mandela effect thing. I thought they had a much bigger role, but then I went back and watched the movie some months ago, and I'm like, wow, they're not really that big in this movie. They don't even have names. Number 27th place, Vargas, another Red Grant type knockoff, who is Largo's henchman, and he's kind of creepy looking, the weird looks he has in his face all the time.
I think you got the point. Yes.
Yes. 26th, Bambi and Thumper from Diamonds Are Forever.
Finally, you got to one that I know.
Right. 25th place, Helga Brandt, the Spectre assassin and You Only Live Twice, who captures Bond, decides that, he's hot, and then instead of letting him go, decides, okay, I'm going to kill him in a weird way. Yeah, she didn't make much of an impression on me. 24th place, Eric, another Red Grant type knockoff from You Only Lived, from For Your Eyes Only.
Okay.
23rd place, Joe Butcher, played by Wayne Newton, the televangelist who's the middleman for the cartel and License.
Okay. Bless your heart.
Yes, exactly. 22nd place, I put Irma Bunt from On Her Majesty's Secret Service. She kind of struck me as a really stern headmistress of a school. She's always sneering and giving everybody the buzzkill, but she doesn't really get to do much until like the very, very end of the movie. 21st place, Necros, another Red Grant type knockoff who's from The Living Daylights. He is posing as the milkman when he goes to attack base. He is on the big fight with Dalton on the airplane, which was awesome.
Yes.
Okay, 20th place, Fiona.
The Walkman Garrot.
Yes.
Yes.
20th place, Fiona Volpe from Thunderball. I mean, she's a great character. When it comes to henchmen, sometimes they have certain things memorable about it. I'm like, she's a great character, but I just didn't really. It's like, okay, she's like another character. It didn't really strike.
Oh, I don't think you give Fiona Volpe enough credit. She was a femme fatale.
It's true, she is. These lists are always subject to change.
Absolutely. This is our favorite. We are going to be going through these in a more educated and informed manner. Yeah. But no, I'm just impressed. If these are the people that I have to choose from to make this list, this is a qualified list.
In 19th place, Mr. Gupta, played by Ricky Jay from Tomorrow Never Dies.
Ooh.
Ricky Jay, come on.
Yeah.
18th place, Dario, played by Benicio del Toro. Very underutilized character from License to Kill. Really sadistic and kind of weird.
Yeah. Really great, though.
Number 17, Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd from Diamonds Are Forever. Mm-hmm. Very quirky henchman, really fun. 16th place, Zhao from Die Another Day, better known as Diamond Face.
Diamond Face.
15th place, I got Emile Locke, who could have been Roger Moore's Red Grant, the octagon-rimmed glasses assassin who has barely any screen time in that movie and is arguably the best villain in that movie.
From Your Eyes Only, or For Your Eyes Only.
Yes. 14th place, Mr. Hinks from Spectre, played by Dave Bautista. 13th place, Mayday from A View to a Kill, played by Grace Jones. In 12th place, Boris Grishenko from GoldenEye. 11th place, Dr. Kaufman from Tomorrow Never Dies, played by Vincent Schiavelli. Very memorable scene.
Yes.
10th place, Rosa Klebb from Russia with Love, we'll be talking about tonight. 9th place is Gobinda, who's Kamal Khan's bodyguard in Octopussy.
I was trying to remember his name.
Yes. In 8th place, Jaws. Of course, the steel-toothed badass. In 7th... Yes, I know. In 7th place, Mr. Stamper from Tomorrow Never Dies. Another Red Grant knockoff, but one I think that actually works. 6th place, Xenia Onatopp. 5th place, Teehee, also known as Butterhook, his other nickname from Live and Let Die. Very snazzy guy. I would love to hang out with that guy for a whole movie if we could. 4th place, Baron Samedi. Doesn't say much, but kind of has this little creep show factor to him. 3rd place, Nick Nack, played by the immortal Hervé Filchez. 2nd place, I've mentioned his name a lot so far, Red Grant.
Red Grant.
Talking about tonight. And first is Odd Job.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, you know what? I thought that we were going to have a conversation.
I always liked Odd Job, by the way. I just wanted to pop in and say that. He's probably one of my favorite.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. That was great. So we have to have some favorability for Odd Job. It is Steve's favorite, and I appreciate that. So Red Grant, I'm glad that we agree that Red Grant is a henchman. He's my number 1.
Okay.
My number 2 is Nick Nack. My number 3 is Stamper. My number 4 is Xenia Onatopp. 5 is Odd Job. 6 is Baron Samedi. 7 is Elvis from Quantum of Solace. Does that count? Like, I don't even think it should be at 7. I just literally wrote down all the ones I knew, and I think at this point,
it froze for a second on my end when you said that. Who from Quantum of Solace now?
Elvis.
I was thinking about that, but I thought, I don't know if he qualifies as a henchman. He's hanging around and kind of standing there. He doesn't really get to do anything.
Well, if Martin Crest is a henchman, like he does.
He has a lot of dialogue and actually gets to do stuff. Elvis he's got that weird haircut and he doesn't say anything. He just kind of he's there to kind of blow up at the end.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And just because he doesn't do anything doesn't necessarily mean that he's not a henchman.
That's true.
I just always I never understood his character, and it took YouTube videos and research and background to find out who's the creepy guy who hangs out with Dominic Green. And so, I just like him as almost a meme.
He's really great on the behind-the-scenes stuff in that movie, too. Very enthusiastic guy.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not saying anything about the performance. I'm just saying in terms of how it was captured. Yeah. But, I also have, at 8, I got Mr. Kid and Mr. Wint. Bambi and Thumper come right after that because I really like Diamonds Are Forever for some reason. Mr. Kill, Mr. Hinks, Rosa Klebb, Mayday, Renard. You didn't say Renard.
There were 2 villains like that I thought about, being Renard and the other being Arkady Oromov, but I wasn't sure if they necessarily qualified as henchmen because they are major players. Like, to me, a henchman is more of somebody who's either the muscle or kind of the sidekick who does a little bit. I mean, Oromov is very key in allowing Trevelyan's plan to work at all. It doesn't work without Oromov. Whereas Renard, yes, he's wrapped around Electra's finger and he doesn't know it. But I wasn't really exactly sure. Maybe I should go back and reevaluate and put those 2 in the henchman list. But I can do that another time. But yes, he's very good.
Yes. And then the usuals, like all of your Red Grant clones, and all of your Rosa Klebb, all the people there. But yeah, I think Rosa Klebb basically and Irma Bunt, they rounded out my list. And after that, I just started watching From Russia with Love. Which brings us nicely into our sort of discussion in regards to From Russia with Love. This is what year did this come out? 1964?
1963.
Pardon me. And this is the first time that I've actually sat down and given it my undivided attention. I haven't seen it in a long time, and I liked it a heck of a lot more, although I do understand why I got bored with it at times. How did you find it after watching it twice over the last 72 hours?
I had to watch it twice because it wasn't as memorable. Like, a lot of the scenes almost kind of rolled into each other, and there's a lot of stuff that happens. I needed to remember exactly all that because the online spoilers, spoiler reviews aren't as detailed. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed it, but I do have problems with it. It's more of a middle tier Bond film to me. But
yeah, okay. So,
shall I begin?
I just want to point out before you begin, because this is just a visual flourish and not plot related. This is the first time we get the James Bond intro with the gun barrel sequence. I watched mine on Blu-ray. That is clearly not Sean Connery. And then this is also the first cold open. We don't just go into the Three Blind Mice. We have an introductory scene. So tell us, set the scene.
All right. So the film begins at this hedge maze garden at night. We see Red Grant, big guy, muscular guy, buzz cut blonde hair, bleached, walking around through the garden, stalking James Bond. Bond has this really weird ghostly pallor look to his face, and I was like, what the heck's going on with this? I remember this as a little kid even really standing out. And he gets garroted to death by Red Grant, and when that happens, these big spotlights come on, and we see that this is like a presentation that's being put on, and the sidekick Morzeny comes up, and he times it. He's like, oh, a minute 32 seconds. Very good. And then he pulls the mask off. And it's like, oh, this looks like something from Mission Impossible. But no, it's James Bond, I assure you. And the man, of course, was not James Bond, but some stand-in.
With a mustache.
He does. And they put the mustache on there because the actor they had, people kept thinking that it was Sean Connery. And they thought so they had to go back and reshoot it with a guy with a mustache. Or they put
okay.
Yes, that was funny. So it's a great scene because it plants the idea in your head that Red Grant could kill James Bond, even though it's not the actual Bond that he killed, but it makes us that. So then we go to this chess match in a beautiful $150,000 set, and it's just gorgeous. We have chess master Kronstein recreating a real life chess move to win this chess match. He's possibly the most arrogant and unbearably egotistical guy in the franchise. Tends to refer to himself in the third person a lot. He goes to Blofeld, and if you look carefully, you'll notice Blofeld's actually on a boat, like a yacht of some kind, because you can see it from the windows out at the sea. And so he comes up.
Rock.
Yeah, kind of rocks a little bit. And he's got Rosa Klebb is in there too, Spectre number 3. And Kronstein's plan is to steal an electric decoding device, use a woman from the Soviet consulate to help them steal it, and that they're going to enlist the British Secret Service to do so. And their evil plan is, we'll say that this girl wants to defect and bring the Lecter as a prize. To which Blofeld responds, well, aren't they going to suspect a trap? And he's like, yes, of course, but they'll accept it as a challenge, and it'll totally work, and we'll have a Spectre assassin shadowing him, provided by Rosa Klebb. And Blofeld's like, how can you ensure success? Oh, because this Spectre agent's going to be really motivated to avenge the death of Dr. No, because for some reason, I guess some random Spectre agent will care enough about that. This plan cannot fail. It's perfect. And referring to himself in the third person again. And Rosa Klebb is very confident that she's got this handled. So then we cut to Spectre.
Well, but before we move on, what is the acronym for Spectre?
Special
executive for counterintelligence.
Special executive for counterintelligence, terrorism, revenge, and extortion.
They do all those things in this movie.
They do, basically. And on that note, I guess I should mention it while we're on this scene. They got Anthony Dawson, who played Professor Dent, to sit in for Blofeld, but they got Eric Coleman to dub the voice. And he sounds so intimidating and so authoritative. And I'm like, it's a character that you just can't wait to see on screen that we don't really ever get. But I just had to mention that. I love it. So then we go to Spectre Island, which admittedly kind of hokey that they have like a whole island, which almost feels like MI6 headquarters, but for Spectre.
Yeah, but I love that. The action and the flamethrowers. And
Yes. So we see Red Grant is getting a massage out on the lawn. Rosa Klebb calls him. He comes up. She sizes him up, like hits him with her long stick, and he's standing here and he looks almost a bit like almost off in a way, like a robot, which I kind of like because he seems. It goes to a quip which Bond will suggest later in the movie, like what lunatic asylum did you break out of? And I kind of get that impression for him, like he's not entirely on the level. Like there's something off about him. And so
General Gogol as not General Gogol, but the same actor as accompanying Klebb to Red Grant. It's like we plucked him, and he has been very susceptible to the conditioning of Spectre. So this guy's been brainwashed to just do whatever these people say.
Yes. So they pick him. Then Rosa Klebb recruits the woman from the consulate. This is Tatiana Romanova. And she basically, Rosa really intimidates her and is very upfront and just really intense about it because she doesn't want Tatiana questioning anything. And of course, Tatiana doesn't know that Rosa Klebb works for Spectre. She thinks she still works for Smersh.
Yes.
And so, which kind of opens up some problems with the logic of the story, which I'll get to later. But so Tatiana is definitely going with it. There's some interesting undertones in the scene, the way Rosa's kind of interacting with Tatiana in that scene. Little interesting. And so Tatiana basically she's on board with this plan. She's like, okay, I'll do it.
Okay. So Rosa Klebb basically brings in Tanya and says, you have been working for us for a while. You're great. You've had 3 lovers. And Tanya's like, what kind of a question is that? And Rosa Klebb's like, you're not asking questions. I'm the one answering, or I'm the one asking the questions. Will you have sex with this person? And she's like, well, I don't know if he's kind, if he's gentle. And Klebb says, you will do it. And she's like, well, what if I don't? And it's like, you're not leaving this room alive. So basically, we've assessed your character. We know you're easy. We want you to be easy with this person so we can feed counterintelligence to the enemy.
Yeah.
It is totally like it's, you like to fuck. Do it for us or we'll kill you. And it's just like, she is under the thumb. I wouldn't say she's into it, but the character motivations do sort of, she's kind of a flake.
Yeah, into it because she doesn't really quite, and that I'll get to that when we get there. But
yes, okay.
So the next scene, we finally go to MI6, or not to MI6. First, we go to Bond on a date. He's like on a picnic by the river with Sylvia.
Eunice Gayson, once again, the only time we see a returning Bond girl.
He seems, at least until the recent times, she seems a bit different from like Dr. No. I felt she was going toe to toe with Bond a lot more confidence, a little more sassy. Here she kind of is this almost like whiny kind of go, oh, we haven't had lunch yet. I'm starving. And when he's on the phone with MI6 and she's bugging him, oh, he most certainly will not come in the 9 minutes. And Bond actually slaps her and tells her to shut up. And it's like, she doesn't even seem like the same person, but okay. So Bond goes into the MI6 headquarters, and as Kronstein predicted, M does suspect that this is a trap, but he decides to go ahead with it anyway. Said mission being to rendezvous with Tatiana, retrieve the electric device, and come back to London. And this is where we get to meet Q for the first time, known as Major Boothroyd in the script. He comes in, and the gadgets he gives Bond is this suitcase that has an AR-7 sniper rifle folded up inside. It's got 90 charged currency hidden in 25 coins on one side, 25 on the other. It's got a knife hidden in through the side of the top of the briefcase blade, and it has a tear gas cartridge, which if you open the briefcase just right, it will explode in your face. And Bond kind of flippantly dismisses these gadgets, like, oh, I don't really need this. And M's like, you're taking it with you. And so Bond is tasked with going off on his mission. He arrives in Turkey, Istanbul, rendezvous with Kerim Bey, who's the head of MI6 section over there. And Kerim Bey, my God, I'd say he's probably my favorite Bond sidekick in the whole series because he exudes this confidence and level of cool, which you think only James Bond can get away with, but he pulls it off in so many scenes in this movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can enjoy your time in Istanbul, Bond. You'll be here for a couple of days. Oh, this will be easy. Nothing bad's going to happen. But, of course, something bad does happen. Red Grant kills a Soviet agent who was tailing Bond.
Tailing Bond. Everyone tails everyone in Istanbul, though, and so it's a situation. It's an agreement we have. It works out. We do not hide our day to day.
Right. So Red Grant kills the Soviet agent, leaves his body in the car outside the Soviet consulate, makes sure that the guards see him do this. And this, in turn, inspires the Soviets to seek retaliation. And, of course, because they're Soviets, you know that they're going to retaliate in a ridiculously over-exaggerated way. First, by bombing Karim Bey's house. And that's, by the way, a great scene, too. Like, Karim Bey's sitting in the study. He's reading, like, a book or whatever, and his wife or his girlfriend, whoever she is lying on the bed. She's like, "Oh, Karim Bey. Oh, Karim Bey." She just keeps beckoning to him. And he finally caves in and goes over to her, and he says something like he's like, really not into it. It's like the thing I do from a job. And then bam,
back to the salt mines.
Yeah, back to the salt mines. And then you have the big explosion. Bond shows up the next morning, and he's totally casual about it, like as if it's something that just happens every day around there.
Yep.
So Karim Bey decides to show him around. He takes him into the catacombs, real-life catacombs under the cities of Istanbul, and they have the ability to spy on the Russian consulate, where Karim Bey, being the badass that he is, has installed this really nice periscope to sneak out in the boardroom of the Soviet consulate. They see Tatiana in there. They see Karim Bey's rival, Kurlenko, who is the guy that's in charge of, who bombed Karim Bey's house and will go on to do worse things. So Karim Bey decides it's not a good idea for Bond to stay at the hotel because they're probably watching them. And sure enough, Bond had discovered his room was even wired. So they go to this gypsy camp. And honestly, there's really no purpose for this scene to be in the film. Because they've already established that Kurlenko has sought retaliation for the death of the Soviet agent, whom he thinks Karim Bey is responsible for killing. So having him commit another action scene, it's like we don't really learn anything here. It's just an excuse to have a girl fight and a giant action scene where we see Red Grant is sort of covering Bond. And
this is one of those moments where I was like, no, I remember when I get bored in this movie. And there is an extended belly dancing scene and there is a cat fight, but it does set up basically the first action scene, and it's full out. We've got the gypsies versus the Bulgars having retaliatory. They're both, one works for the West, one works for the East. It's created a blood food, Karim Bey tells us. And so it's, it is the first real action scene.
Yeah, it is, but I'm also not a fan of action for action's sake. This kind of feels like what this scene is. I do like that when Karim Bey gets shot, he doesn't let that slow him down because he's a total badass. Yeah. And this carries over.
They fight, gunfight. I actually have that written down. Fight, gunfight.
So this carries over into the next night when Karim Bey decides he needs to assassinate Kurlenko before he flees the city. And you have this rather odd scene where Kurlenko is trying to rappel down this building, climbing out of this. They have this advertisement for like a Bob Hope movie with two ladies' face on it. So he's climbing out through the mouth. And Bond initially is going to kill him, but Karim Bey's like, no, I'll do it. And he's, again, being total badass, so cool about it. Takes a little time, but he does succeed in killing this guy. And because the whole point for Spectre is that they want to play the two sides against each other, it's like, okay, but the Kurlenko character didn't really do much for me, whatever. Meanwhile, Bond goes to his hotel and he meets Tatiana. He met her for the first time. They hit it off. They have sex, and unbeknownst to them, Rosa Klebb and Red Grant are filming it.
Okay, wait. We've just had the most epic James Bond theme checking into a hotel scene where James Bond goes over his hotel room with a fine-tooth comb, and there's a big mirror by the bed. It's the bridal suite. But he doesn't even bat an eye. He's like, no, that's normal. I don't have to investigate that at all.
That's true. And that's another thing I also found a little odd about the earlier Bond movies is that they played like the epic Bond theme for even the most mundane things. And sometimes it feels a little weird. And this one is the most guilty of it. Yeah. Yeah. So they get filmed having the sex scene. And that's something else, a plot point I have a problem with because of just the cheesiness of it. But okay. She then makes arrangements to steal the blueprints for the blueprints for the consulate. They have an interesting rendezvous at the Church of the Sophia. There is another Russian agent who has been tailing her and was going to try and stop her from doing this, but Red Grant gets to him first and kills him. Bond gets the maps. He meets her there later on a boat, and she's talking about what the Lecter device, how it works. And the whole time Bond is interviewing her and recording this on a device, she keeps getting distracted and trying to, oh, James, will you buy me a dress when we do this, when we go to London, all this kind of stuff. And it's really funny because Moneypenny and all these guys from the British military are listening in at MI6 headquarters. And she asked, Tatiana asked Bond at one point if he's ever loved anybody like this before, blah, blah. And he's like, well, there was one time that M and I were in Tokyo. And then M shuts off the machine.
That's all, Miss Moneypenny. That's all. Yeah. Get out of the... But then she goes out to her office and turns on the intercom, and she's listening to the whole thing. It's great. It showed some Moneypenny ingenuity in only the second film, and so she was still very Moneypenny's always on the ball. Yes.
So then in another somewhat surprise in the film, they very easily steal the Lecter device. It's like Bond just walks into the consulate, a bomb goes off, and then all of a sudden he's in the back room. They have it. They leave. I'm like, is there no security here? Because you've got this decoding device, which is, they played it up as if it's like this really groundbreaking, stellar piece of technology, and there's like no security there at all. And the fact
they had one guy in like lightly armed in a room with a cage. Like it makes sense. That's where you keep your government secrets.
Yeah, and Bond admittedly is really cool when he goes in there. He's like, "Oh, are your clocks on time?" Soviet clocks are always on time. And it just, that's kind of a neat bit where he stands there and he actually is like almost laughing when the bomb finally goes off. But but think that doing this and something this extreme is gonna really sour relations, because it's like, it's one thing to set off a bomb or to try and kill somebody who works for the consulate at their private home, because they could write that off. Oh, it wasn't us, blah, blah. But to actually bomb the consulate or to attack a gypsy camp is one thing. It's like, okay, it's a gypsy camp. It could be any number of reasons that this happened. But to bomb a consulate, I'm thinking this could provoke some serious consequences for Karen Bay, because he's not going back to London with them. He's just, going to see to it that they get out of the country. And I'm thinking, he's really thinking ahead on this one. So they flee with the Lecter device. They get on the Orient Express. She notices.
Oh, wait. I just want to add one more thing onto the pile that you've presented to me. Also, earlier on, when Bond arrives in Istanbul, it is made very clear that everyone knows where everyone's going, who's arrived, who's coming, who's going. And Bond says to Karen Bay, he says, well, this is going to tie me to you, very obviously. And Karen Bay's like, no, it's no big deal. Everyone knows it's no big deal. So then James Bond walks into the consulate, and they're all just like, okay, it's that guy that we all know is here, and we know he's working for the other side. He should be able to traipse about.
Exactly. It's this, because again, like the minute Bond arrived, not only did you have the Russian agent tailing him in the car that Red Grant killed, but you had the other guy with the spectacles who later got killed at the church who was tailing him too. So it's like, they know who he is, and yet nobody at the consulate recognizes him when he's this. Yeah, so that's a little, okay. So then he gets
moving on.
Yes. So they board the Orient Express. Tatiana freezes for a moment before she gets on because she recognizes a guy from the consulate named Benz, and Bond ushers her onto the train anyway, and they don't notice that Red Grant is also on the train. But then again, they haven't seen him yet, so it's not like they should notice him, but we notice him.
Yep.
So they get their rooms, and she's talking about, are you going to buy me a dress? I'm going to wear this in Piccadilly. They're kind of flirting and all that kind of stuff. Then the Benz guy becomes a problem. Bond and Karen Bay subdue him. Karen Bay sits down with him in a cart, and he's like, should I tell you about I've lived a wonderful life. Should I tell you about it? I'm like, this guy is so cool. I wish there was in more of these films.
Absolutely amazing actor.
But then not too long later, we find out that Karen Bay and his prisoner have apparently killed each other, but we know it was Red Grant because after Bond left the room, Red kind of salties on in, and the way he moves too, like something about Red is just very intimidating, and because again, he's like off the level, he's a bit different. He doesn't really have to say much to kind of get the point across. So once Karen Bay is dead, Bond figures, well, we were supposed to meet Karen Bay's sons at this checkpoint. And so they get there, and he tells his sons, oh, by the way, I'm sorry, your father's been murdered, blah, blah, blah. Can you put in a message for me to have an MI6 agent meet me at Zagreb, which is the next big stop? So he's like, okay. So they make it to Zagreb, and this agent Nash is killed off screen by Red Grant in the bathroom. Grant presents himself in this little phony accent, greets Bond. And by the way, I should mention, when Bond was talking with Karen Bay's son about this, Grant was shadowing him in the train, walking along, kind of looking. That was such a great scene, too.
Oh, it was
like a tiger stalking his prey, and they're just building up the movie to this inevitable confrontation. So anyway,
it's kind of funny because I was thinking about him, and I was thinking that's like a shark, and then I was like, oh yeah, no, because it's Robert Shaw and Jaws. But I also enjoy the spycraft of Do you have a match? I use a lighter. Better still, until it goes wrong, and they have the counter sign, the counter phrase to be able to know who the good guys are and the bad guys are, and they've been using it throughout the movie. And so it's interesting to see Red Grant sort of observe that and take advantage of it to kill Nash, and then also take his case that is standard issue, and I'm sure M told him to take it with him as well.
Yes, and so Bond has finally kind of decided that it's time to let Tatiana know that he's aware that this has been a trap of some kind from the beginning, because M warned him about that. And he's like, you might not have known about it from the beginning, but tell me. And he hits her and throws her around a little bit, which is like, oh, okay, Bond. But
1963.
In 1963, but this is where, like I mentioned earlier, the thing was problematic with Tatiana's mission. So Rosa clearly tried to instill in her, don't ask questions, just do it. And Red Grant will say later, she's doing it all for Mother Russia. And I'm thinking, from Tatiana's perspective, doesn't she find it suspicious that their plan is to attack the Russian consulate, steal the lecture, give it to a British agent, and help try and abscond with it towards London? I mean, granted, we could tell that Bond has really won her over and that she genuinely wants to go there. But But in her perspective, isn't she at all thinking about, like, what is the end game of this mission? Because from the perspective of her being a Russian working for Smersh, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense as to why. Like, if this is about feeding counterintelligence, it's like, from her perspective, when are we going to start feeding the counterintelligence? Because this has gone really far.
Well, even a misprogrammed Lecter machine would be counterintelligence. She's not. She is just a crypto clerk. She's not necessarily their section chief of cryptography. She just hands papers.
Oh, right. I know that. I just meant that, seeing as Rosa Klebb specifically told her, you're going to do this, you're going to follow our orders, and she's doing it. I just figured that Tatiana would be maybe smart enough to kind of ask herself, like, okay, where are we going with this? It's like, what's really the mission here? Because it just seems like Rosa Klebb didn't really tell her exactly what. She told her, yes, you're going to sleep with this guy, you're going to do this, but she didn't really say to what end this is going to benefit Russia, which I thought was rather odd, unless she told her off screen or something. But I just thought that was kind of weird that Tatiana doesn't seem to have her own agency to kind of think about these types of things during the mission.
We can jump back to it. Let's keep going with the plot.
So Bond meets Nash. They go to have dinner in the car in the Orient Express, on the main dining car. Bond is late to dinner because he sneaks a peek at Nash's briefcase. Sees okay, he's got 6, so he's confident. So they're sitting at dinner, they're having a good time. Nash is, Grant is putting on this ridiculous accent and all that, and he deliberately knocks over Tatiana's wine glass and sneaks some pills in there, and Bond sees him do it. And the movie makes a point of letting you know that Bond saw this happen. So then they go back to the room, and she's really tired and passed out. They go into the side cart, and Bond's like, what'd you put in her drink? And he's like, oh, well, it's harmless because my escape plan only involves you. So what are you in it for, Bond? Are you in it for the girl or the Lecter? Meaning that 6 apparently doesn't intend to honor their deal to bring her back, presumably because, M knows it's a trap. So, of course, Nash is going to say that. Of course, Grant is going to say that. So Bond is he buys that explanation. Bond puts his gun away, and Grant gets out a map, and he's showing them where they're going to go and how they're going to escape. And then while Bond is scrutinizing the map, Grant pulls out his gun and bam, hits him on the back of the head. He doesn't shoot him immediately, which would have been the smart thing to do.
Yes.
Instead, he waits for Bond to come to, and at first Bond thinks he's working for Smersh, but then Grant doesn't really react to it, and he's like, oh, Spectre, of course. And he starts laying out the plan. Oh, you've been working for us the whole time type of thing. And, once we kill you and the girl, it'll look like a murder-suicide. We'll leave a note saying that she was trying to blackmail you to bring her back to England. And then we'll release the tape. And Bond's like, what tape? And he mentions the sex tape. And he's like, yeah, the girl didn't know about that. She didn't really know anything. And when Bond hears him mention the sex tape, he's like, it would have to make certainly a conglomeration of sick minds to come up with a diabolical plan like that. And I'm thinking, really, Bond? Diabolical because it involves a sex tape, which is really easy, but okay. I get the idea behind it. So Bond offers to bribe Grant to get out of this problem. And, actually, before he bribes him, he says, like, yes, what lunatic asylum did they pull you out of? And Grant gives this laugh, like a little snicker type thing, because he thinks he's laid out this wonderful master plan he's executed. And again, to me, that kind of speaks to him being really off the level. Like he's something genuinely, almost like maybe he did come from a lunatic asylum before. Island, which I kind of liked about it. So Bond offers to bribe him out of it. And for some reason, Red Grant retains the thought. And so Bond gets out the money. And it's interesting. He gives it, first he opens Nash's case with the money. Then he offers to open it again, knowing that Grant is going to take the case and want to open himself. And therein, when the tear gas explodes and we have one of the best fights, brutal, intense, which ironically ends with Red Grant getting garroted, which he had done to the other fake agent in the beginning of the film, or the fake
Oh, it's
Bond.
perfect.
Yeah, it's perfect. Tatiana is still suffering from the effects of the delirium. Bond wakes her up. Red Grant has two cronies. Yeah, he's like, come on, we have to go or I'm going to leave you here. Blah,
Wake
blah.
up, wake up. I'll leave you here. I'll leave you here. Like, and he's throwing her around like a rag doll, just like, go.
So they get off the train where Red Grant has had two cronies park their flower truck on the rail as a way to get the train to stop. For some reason that I'm not really clear on, Bond knocks out one of them because he'd been shouting for Grant. He puts Tatiana in the back of the truck bed, but he's fine with the other guy just still being in the truck. And I'm like,
no. From what I understand, it was only one guy on the truck who was calling for Grant, and then he knocks him out, ties him up so that he knows where to go. Like, he's still going to need directions to the boat. He doesn't know where the boat is, I don't think.
Oh, because I thought the other guy probably because
I always thought there was only one guy.
Yeah, there was another guy in the. Was that the same guy? It wasn't the same guy. I guess it was.
I think it was the same guy.
Okay, I guess I thought I saw two in the dark. Maybe I'm wrong. So anyway,
it is a very dark scene.
Yeah, so they take off in the car. In a scene that's directly ripped off from North by Northwest, we have a helicopter come in. And I admit this actually makes a lot more sense in context in this movie than it did in North by Northwest. Helicopter scene's pretty awesome. Sean Connery does his own stunts. That's pretty cool. So it's an awesome scene. Then they get to the boat, or not to the boat, but they have the helicopter scene, and then they take off in the truck without the other guy with them. Then we cut back to Spectre, wherever Blofeld's headquarters are, and he's really Blofeld's mad. Kronstein tries to blame it on Groza because it's like, oh, it was her man carrying out the mission. It can't be my fault, even though he assured Blofeld that he had contemplated every possible outcome, which were his exact words. And so Morzani comes in. He's got the boot with the poison-tipped knife, and Blofeld's talking to Rosa, saying, oh, you know the penalty for failure number 3. And she's really looking petrified. I'm like, man, she's about to go
out. Yeah.
But then Morzani ends up kicking Kronstein instead. And the look on Kronstein's face, the absolute shock. He can't believe it. He collapses dead to the ground, and Blofeld's like, 12 seconds. Next time we'll have to invent a faster-acting poison. So then he tasks Rosa with finishing the job. You're gonna go to Venice, wherever you're gonna finish it. She's like, yes, number 1, I'm gonna do it. But Morzani, despite that he ordered her to do this, I'm guessing the boat plan ends up being the first part of her plan.
I would think so.
Yeah, so her first plan was to send Morzani and a bunch of Spectre agents to the harbor. Bond gets in the boat. He knocks the henchman who he'd been using for directions off into the water. And I think he did untie him before he threw him in, so he's not going to drown. They're taking off on the boat.
He does. I checked. I looked.
Yes, Morzani is getting on his bullhorn and telling Bond to surrender, which, of course, you have no credibility, man. Of course, he's not going to do that. So Bond knocks
Ahoy, Mr. Bond! Ahoy!
So Bond knocks all the fuel drums off the boat, starts shooting a bunch of bolt holes in them, so they start spilling oil all over the harbor. Then he gets out the flare gun and sets it off. Massive explosion. There's even a guy who jumps off one of the flaming boats into the oil slick that's on fire. I'm like,
yep.
You could have jumped over there. But so that action scene's done. They end up in Venice. They're at the hotel room. They're having a good time. Then Rosa Klebb shows up as a maid. She pulls a gun on Bond. She puts the lecter in Tatiana's hands. Tatiana's leaving with it. Klebb is reaching out towards the door, about ready to shoot Bond, but then Tatiana attacks Rosa. Bond leaps in and pulls Rosa off of her. They're kind of fighting each other up against the wall. Bond's using the little side table to try and block her shoe, because she's been kicking at him. Tatiana ends up getting the gun, and she moves it back and forth between Bond and Rosa. What do I do? What do I do? And then she shoots Rosa, who dies. They then go off on a fun little canal ride where Tatiana mentions that, Bond, we're being filmed by these tourists. And he's like, oh, not again. And he pulls out the tape. He looks at it, and he makes some type of comment about it. And he's like, yeah, great. And he throws the film in the water. And then they, live happily ever after, at least until the next movie.
Absolutely.
So
that is the plot of From Russia with Love. Well done. Well done.
Yeah. My big problem with this film is that this is one of only 4 Bond movies where they tell you who the villains are and what their evil plan is right up front. And basically, the plan goes exactly according to plan until Bond finally calls Tatiana on the fact that he knows and has known this whole time that there's something else afoot here, because M warned him it was a trap. And it really doesn't go awry for Spectre definitely until Bond kills Grant. So that's like nearly an hour and a half of the film between finding out what the plan was at the beginning of the movie and Bond, or before Bond actually does something to counteract it. So I felt the whole time that I'm watching this that it's like I'm waiting for Bond to catch up to what's going on or to demonstrate that he knows and is going to do something. Because it feels like we're going through the motions. Like you've laid out the plan, you've laid it out almost specifically enough, and it's like, okay, when are we going to get there? I really felt that Karen Bay was carrying a lot of this movie because of his charisma. Red Grant, and as much as I loved Red Grant, I didn't think they utilized him as much. This could have been like a spy versus spy type movie, perfect for that kind of guy. But he's in the shadows a lot because he's just, his job is literally to shadow Bond and make sure nothing bad happens to him after he turned them against each other. And even though he doesn't have much screen time, once Grant is killed, I just felt that just sucks a lot of the air out of the movie. And the whole action bit with the helicopter and the boats just felt very tacked on. Like I didn't really care about it. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Rosa Club ending is a little bit better, but it's just when you don't leave room for many surprises in the main body of the film, and it's just like we're kicking along, we're going on. And like I said with Tatiana, she's kind of just going along with it, not really thinking much. It's just kind of, I mean, it's still good. I enjoy all the performances. It just felt a little flat, and it doesn't hit those high notes like it does for so many other people for me.
Well, and I'm in the same boat because, again, I can identify when I get bored, and it's weird that I get bored during the action scenes. Like, when we get to the gypsy camp, I'm really not all that invested, and I'm just like, yeah, pew, 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 pew. And when I'm more invested when Karen Bay kills the guy shimmying out of Anita Ekberg's mouth. Also, interesting fact, that movie was Harry Saltzman production, from what I understand. So it was a little cross promotion. But yeah, and that's when it falls flat. In terms of, I was never under the impression that Tanya was smart.
I just figured at the very least.
Mm-hmm. And so she is tasked with falling in love and romancing Bond, and that is what she does, and she falls in love with him. As like, I even saw when she's on the train and Bond confronts Tanya and says, I know, and starts shaking, you're hurting me, James. And it's like and she is like literally almost under a conditioning, being like, I do love you, James, I do love you. And it's like, you'll just believe anything. And I think it was more of a commentary on what it was like to be under the oppressive rule of the Soviet Union than anything else. You doing it for Mother Russia because that's what it's like to be a Russian. Like, again, there is going to be a little bit of like political commentary coming between these. We're on the West and we're the best kind of thing. And anyone who's behind the Iron Curtain, they just believe whatever they're told because they are Soviets. So those stereotypes abound. I buy the plan, and I was trying to keep a close eye on the plan this time around because, again, this is.
I forgot to mention the reason Spectre did all this wasn't just revenge against Bond, but they were going to steal the Lecter and sell it back to the Russians and make them.
Yes. That's extortion. Mm-hmm.
And then
So, well, I guess the first part of their plan was getting Rosa Klebb, and then making sure that all these things would fall into place, and that's what Kronstein was using her for, and that's why Kronstein ended up getting the boot, essentially. And the whole thing, I'm okay. I'm okay with it. In fact, I agree with you. It is kind of Bond trying to catch up in the moments that I can see where Bond is not catching up. I feel like I'm like, no, giant mirror. So it is kind of obviously stupid.
And that thing too, the whole sex tape. I've honestly always thought scandals of sex tapes are unbelievably cheesy and stupid. It's like, wow, somebody made a sex tape. Who cares? Yeah. And it's like, oh, we're gonna scandalize the British by showing them that they're British. And I get it, a British agent, having an affair with like a Russian, that because of the Iron Curtain thing. Both sides. Oh, how could you even think of that kind of thing? But I don't know. I just always felt that. I mean, I understand because of the time period, but even the fact that people still freak out about those things today, I just thought it was unbelievably cheesy. Like Red Grant's whole, big mea culpa moment is to reveal that I have a sex tape on you I'm going to release. And I'm like, really? And it's like, okay.
But again, I want to make it a story of the time, and that's why even with the belly dancing and the cat fight, like these are exotic locations, and they're titillating to be able to see the things that were going on. Like at that point, we're still talking about Annette Funicello not being able to show her belly button, and so if you want to go see a lady's belly button with a diamond in it, you got to go see the new James Bond movie.
That so great set on Pinewood, that whole gypsy camp.
Really? Wow.
Yeah,
I thought cool. That was really cool. But all in all, I don't revisit this one as much. Well, no, not at all, really. Like when I want to watch it, I end up watching the first little while once we get to the train, if I make it to the train, because it is a hurdle getting over that gypsy camp. Once Red Grant is dead, I'm kind of done with the flick.
Yeah, and they're on a train like a long time. It's like nearly half. It's about an hour, 9 minutes into the film when they get on the train, and that's like a whole half-hour thing, which is another thing going a bit slow. It's like that's why I wish. I mean, like I said, Red Grant's my second favorite Bond henchman because I think the performance is fantastic and he has such a great screen presence. I just wish that he was a bit more front and center. Like if the idea is, I like the idea of the plot of that we're going to get somebody else to do this for us, like trick this guy into doing it. But I would love him to have a more central role, almost like both spies being tasked going after the same thing, see who's going to get there first type of thing almost. Have them cross paths a bit more, but I get why they don't for the story. I just wish they did because, yeah, like you, the gypsy camp was hard to get through and waiting for Bond to catch up to what's going on. And yeah, you're right, Tatiana's not that smart in hindsight.
Well, and also the character was ultimately written by Ian Fleming. And he didn't necessarily have the highest regard for the female of the species.
Yeah, which is why he wrote that weird thing about Honey Rider, and where she tells Bond the story about how she killed this guy who had raped her with a spider, and it's like this really weird story, and how Bond kind of reacted to it a bit upset, is because you could tell he wanted to get with her and was afraid that wasn't going to happen. I'm like, yeah, that's a real Ian Fleming type sign of the times writing.
Well, we aren't even in for the best of it yet. Next one's going to be the best Ian Fleming female character. So I think last I did, I'm not going to go shuffling through papers now. I do have our ranking from last week. I don't have it on hand, but I'm going to write it down again. What would you give From Russia with Love out of 10? Was it out of 10?
Yeah, it's out of 10. I almost wonder if a 7 would be too high because I'm, again, a little bored watching it. Maybe more in the range of like a 6.5, probably 6.5 to 7, somewhere between there because of everything that I mentioned.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. And also when we end up doing our actual, because once we finish up with the series proper, we will be recapping and definitively listing all of the lists essentially. Henchmen, villains. You're giving this a 6?
Yeah, I'll give it a 6. I'll double down on that number.
Okay. I'm going to give it a 6 as well. No, I'm going to give it a 5. I'm going to drop it to a 5 simply because at the beginning of this conversation, I said I really like Diamonds Are Forever. And I revisit Diamonds Are Forever more than I revisit this. I know. Blasphemy. I'm wrong. Hit me up in the comments. So anyway, yeah, I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10.
All right.
Middle of the road. I'm good. Welcome back. How are you, Steve?
Good. I will give this movie a 5.5 martinis.
Okay.
Okay.
That's right, Rain. It's kind of just mid-level. It's not crap, obviously. It's not.
Yeah.
It's watchable movie, but it's serviceable. But yeah, I usually use that term when movies are just kind of meh. And that's what this isn't one of my favorites, but so 5.5 right in the middle.
Deal.
Cool.
Noted.
No super chats tonight, but do you want to jump over and take some of the comments?
Yeah. Let's see what's going on.
I didn't even know we had super chats set up for this.
We do have super chats, and super stickers. So we'll be sure to let everybody know at the beginning of the show next week, so they can do that.
Todd Michael, how are you, sir? Is saying to the chat, support the Fantasmagorium show with tips and questions at the links in the chat. Thank you, Todd Michael. Todd Michael continues, please comment, like, share, and subscribe. Bing! Hit the bell. It helps us fight evil.
It does. And thanks,
It does.
Todd Michael, for doing the Lord's work, which is letting everybody know what to do and being a good blue wrench in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Edge of Time. No time to delay. Well, we might. Hi, Edge of Time. Thanks for coming by. It's good to see you, man. Ahoy, all.
Ahoy.
Tim Possible, shaken, not stirred. It's good to see you, Tim. Thank you. Tim Possible says, I'm going to see it for Ana de Armas. She is very nice. Absolutely.
Fire. Yep.
Fire. The new Bond movie, that is. Yes.
We got you.
GoldenEye was a dope game, bruh. Absolutely.
It was.
Kat, do you have a favorite character to play as in GoldenEye when you play Deathmatch?
Oh, Deathmatch. Baron Samedi.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm just vanilla. I play Bond.
Was he on the list? Or is
Baron
he?
Samedi? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was on my list. He was my number 4.
He's awesome.
Tim Possible says, hello there to Todd Michael. Edge of Time. Madalton, bro. Yeah, don't get in my face about Madalton, bro. Tim Possible says, Michael Myers was the best Bond. Bring him back.
He may be coming back. That's what I hear anyways.
And Michael Myers from Halloween, Mike Myers from Austin Powers. I don't know which one. I think
it's Mike Myers. But yeah.
Tim Possible says, Henry Cavill, yes, fire. The Man from U.N.C.L.E. was good. I agree. And that's, yeah, absolutely. Todd Michael says, oh my God, I loved The Night Manager. Yeah, ditto. Tim Possible says, low key, I would like Tom Hiddleston as Bond. And I will take by your tongue face that that is a joke. Or if you mean it earnestly, I'm with you.
I see what you did there. Low key.
Yeah.
I'm slow on the uptake. I apologize.
Tim Possible says Timothy Chalamet could be young Bond, but I'd love him put on 15 pounds. Yeah. And some age. He's not old. I don't think he looks old enough to play Bond. Not yet, anyways. Give him some years.
Todd Michael says Chalamet isn't English or from the British Isles at the very least. I can't see them ever casting a non-Brit. I hope not.
I guess. I mean, Connery's Scottish, Brosnan, Irish, Dalton, Welsh, Lazenby, Australian, whereas Moore and Craig were the only two like from England proper.
Mm-hmm.
Tim Possible says that's a good point to Todd Michael. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, they did hire their first ever American non-British director for, which is for the latest one that's coming out. So American.
That is true.
They're open to doing different things. So we'll see.
And Tim Possible says, hail to you, Tim Possible. Todd Michael says, welcome at the Fantasmagorium show to at the Fantasmagorium show. Todd Michael says, Nicholas Hoult, who played young Hank McCoy in some of the X-Men films, would be an interesting Bond choice.
I do like Nicholas Hoult. I think he'd be a great addition, but for Bond, I would say no. I'd like to see Nicholas Hoult in a Bond-esque movie, in a spy movie. I think he'd be a great lead in a spy movie. I don't see him as Bond, but I could be persuaded otherwise.
Todd Michael says they could always subvert expectations and go with Matt Lucas. I don't even know who Matt Lucas is.
I'd have to look up that. It sounds familiar, but I have to look him up.
Todd Michael says, personally, I don't see the franchise surviving the current gender and or race swap, though. I feel they'll go that route, but the film will talk to a certain degree, as I don't think that kind of thing. Tank, maybe Tank. I don't know. I'd like to see this movie. I'd like to see No Time to Die and see where it goes with that before I start thinking about the future too much. Because
is that the whole sentence? Because it feels like the sentence hasn't ended. Like he thinks it'll tank to a certain degree. I don't think that it will appeal to those outside of the West, and I think Bond has always done well globally. Yeah, that's true. That's true. It does much better globally, but it also, I assume, when you're talking about the race or gender swap thing, you're talking about the Nomi character. But again, it remains to be seen what they're doing with that. Personally, I think that's more about like Phoebe Waller-Bridge gave an interview recently where she says, yes, Bond is absolutely still relevant because you had so many articles within the last year saying, oh, is Bond even relevant anymore? They should just end the franchise and blah, blah, blah. And so I feel that's kind of more in the direction they're leaning. Like, they started that theme in Skyfall where, MI6 is outdated, we should shut it down. Continued it in Spectre where they try and shut it down completely. And now it seems like they're continuing it or going to put a capper on it, No Time to Die. Like, no, I am still very relevant and matter, even though the rest of you have moved on. Like she even says, the world has moved on, Commander Bond. And I think that's where he's going to finish off that theme that they've been doing for the previous 2 films. And, I think that's kind of be more what that's about. So I think in that way it might communicate to the global audience. But I get what you're saying. That doing that kind of swapping thing would be more to appeal to certain people here in America, but not globally. Yeah. But if they do it with a theme, I think the way I've just explained it, I think that'll play.
Well, and that's a good point. And also, I don't know why I feel like I have to defend Bond as a franchise moving forward without the just inherent feeling. James Bond kicks ass, and I think that he's still going to kick ass in this movie. And the way people keep talking about this movie is that it's going to kneecap him or emasculate him or castrate him in some way, that he's not going to be James Bond from.
I think I don't know how she kind of looks at him both in the trailer or in the nightclub and when she's in the room, in the hotel room or whatever, and she's kind of giving him a dressing down the way she's kind of looking at him. And even when she tells Moneybay, I could see why you shot him, kind of, or right when he's walking down the road in Norway or whatever, and she drives up in the Super Legra and she kind of pulls down the glasses and looks at him. She's like, stay out of my way. And I think people are just feeling that that's kind of a bit, I think that's where that's coming from. But I don't think it's going to have that interpretation or that feel when we actually see the movie.
I think throwing up adversaries for James Bond is kind of what James Bond overcomes. Mm-hmm. The Fantasmagorium show says, Steve,
Peter Dinklage for the new Bond. That's my choice.
He's awesome.
Not British.
No, not British. And in fact, that's what Todd Michael says. I love him, but once again, he's not British. Would likely never happen. Won't happen, not because he's not British. It's because Hollywood's diversity ends at the water's edge. It only goes so far. But that's a topic for another show and another time.
Todd Michael says, I think they'll cast a non-Brit when they cast a non-Brit Doctor in Doctor Who, if that franchise survives. Well, it's one of those things that I see where you're coming from, Todd Michael. I think that once that casting occurs, then the people who think that the franchise isn't going to survive are going to leave the franchise. And if it doesn't survive after that, we can find the fence post, the signpost that says this is where they killed it.
I'll tell you, if it doesn't survive because they do something like that, they're going to go back to doing what they were doing before that was working. Because even if this movie flops, I mean, the amount of times in the articles about the Amazon acquisition that they mentioned James Bond specifically, clearly they have plans or intentions for this. That they understand, obviously, the conditions of the pandemic and all that. They're not going to hold the flop against this for whatever they intend to do with the Bond franchise. I don't think, and Amazon's definitely about following trends, making sure, okay, we're going to put on put the best foot forward. Especially when we look at the amount of money they're investing in the Lord of the Rings show, I bet that if people were to abandon the Bond franchise en masse because of something they were doing, they would go back to doing what was working before.
So now, look, movie pundits and entertainment news sites, they're going to say this movie's a flop because it doesn't meet a certain financial percentage threshold. Mm-hmm. But to the people who actually make the film and finance these films, it won't be a flop. I'm sure that from what I've seen already from the film, it looks like a pretty decent film. Looks like the other films. So I think if it's a flop, it'll be a flop just based on box office numbers. And if that's the case, then that's not going to deter them from making more Bond films.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's what they mean too when they mention flop. I mean, other than some of the more extreme corners of the internet who perceived, the Nomi character, that means it's going to flop and all that. I mean, I don't think anybody really thinks the movie is going to be a genuinely bad. I haven't heard many people say it's going to be a genuinely bad movie.
I don't see that.
Right. It'll just be, if it flops, it's going to be for box office reasons, not for.
Yeah.
I doubt it'll be for anything else.
Does no one remember Rosie Carver Cat? That was a Live and Let Die reference for everyone paying attention. Anyway, Todd Michael says, okay, the internet's most beloved Polish American is now officially up past his bedtime and needs to leave. All you chatters, take care. Well, thank you, Todd Michael, and an evening to you, Mike Delator.
Oh, Mike, yes, Mike. Hey, thanks for coming.
Says, oops.
He sent it a little. Yeah, it's actually a little monkey guy in the actual chat, and it doesn't transfer here very well.
Oh, well, hey, no, I like the oops, and I'm glad that there's a monkey behind it. Phantasmagorium Show says, fire in your questions. And Mike Delatorre, Karen Bay is Mexican actor Pedro Armendariz.
Yeah, and he was amazing at that. Really sad story when they were making it too. He found out he was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and so Cubby Broccoli was nice enough to rearrange the shooting schedule to get all of his scenes done in advance, which they did. And sadly, he committed suicide at the hospital rather than, waste away from cancer. And that was the tough news for the film crew. But he was excellent in that film. And if you haven't seen the movie, check it out. You'll see what I mean. He's a scene stealer.
He's probably one of the highlights of the movie. Like that he was amazing. The charisma that oozed off of him and everything that he did, he just made me feel welcome into it. And I think that like once Karen Bay goes and then Red Grant goes, I'm kind of like, yes, helicopter, blow up the boats, wave goodbye to the stupid tape, your reel-to-reel sex tape, and then movie. But yeah, no, those are the two highlights are Red Grant and Karen Bay.
Yeah, we said something that made Mike laugh.
Edge of Time says Vortex Dr. Raygun. I think.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Okay.
I don't know what the middle guy is, but
well, he looked like a Doctor Who. I thought it was Sylvester McCoy, and because I'm in a British mindset.
On my screen, it shows a square in the middle.
Oh,
really?
Yeah.
Cat?
Right after Karen Bay has been killed aboard the Orient Express, you can see Ian Fleming in a cameo as an older gentleman facing away from the train with a cane. That is true. You also see when they first board the Orient Express and it shows how Red Grant's leaning out the window, kind of on the train. In the adjacent window, you'll see a cameo from Harry Saltzman's wife, Jacqueline Saltzman.
Ooh.
Name is Jack.
And last one of the night.
All right.
Edge of Time says it's all just content from here on. Yeah. I've seen a couple of people refer to films and television and all the media that's coming out and just referring to it as new content and not as the new TV show, the new season. It's just like, oh, they're releasing new content. And I can get the sense that people are seeing it as just new content. And it makes me a little sad knowing that that's the umbrella of all audiovisual entertainment now.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know, maybe I don't see it as disparaging or different in any way. You're still going to make film. You're still going to make movies. You're still going to make music. Whether it's branded, oh, this is just content. For some reason, that has a bad connotation, which is silly because it shouldn't. Content is content. If you're a content creator of any stripe, I don't see how that diminishes what you do in any way.
Right. And there's so much content out there. It seems like there's something for everybody. It's like you can't expect to like everything. And I think that's part of the misconception people have when they say, oh, they're complaining about the amount of content. It's like, well, that's because you didn't used to see them reach out and do stuff for everybody. You just have to find your niche and what you like.
Yeah.
Oh, Edge of Time is making fun of Kevin Smith.
Makes sense.
Content. I don't get the reference, but okay.
Yeah.
I'm always fine with making fun of Kevin Smith.
Yeah. Anyways, guys, great show.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think that's it for the chat.
Sounds good.
Do we know what the topic is going to be? What are we going to count down next week, or do we want to keep that a secret?
Let's keep that a secret for now. Let's think about that too, a bit more.
Awesome.
Okay. I have ideas. Ideas.
Me too.
But
so tune in next Wednesday for sure.
When Martinis.
But what we can tell you for sure next week is we will be reviewing the third Connery Bond film, Goldfinger.
That's right.
Martinis, Gadgets, and Guns will return with Goldfinger.
Not Thunderball, Scott.
Not this time. That's the one after.
One last one. Edge of Time says Netflix doesn't care. It's just content. That's the assumption, but having a few people that I know that work at Netflix, that's not what the people making the content think. Nor is it the people that actually are paying a lot of money for this content. It's not just content to them. They really love movies and TV. I know it's the perception out there that, it's just content, it's just money. No, I think to the people, there is a bottom line to every business. Every business has a bottom line, right? So the bean counter is obviously going to bean count.
You're right.
But at the soul of that company is people that love film and television.
Yeah, to the people making the content, it means everything about it. But then when Netflix issued that statement a while ago acknowledging that they need to do better at their movies, it's almost in a way like they're kind of acknowledging that they're not paying as close attention or whatever. Because I admit on a lot of them, you could tell that some of them feel like they're right out of film school and maybe needed to start in television or short films first.
Yeah.
But you're right. The people who make the content are very passionate about what they do.
Well, and I do think at first established directors and filmmakers were taking big paydays from Netflix and then phoning in some stuff just to, almost like this is like a direct-to-video thing and we don't have to worry about it. That has changed, obviously. Mm-hmm. But that perception is still out there and it sucks. Because I do think, for the most part, the people, obviously the creators there and the people that are bringing creators into Netflix, responsible for getting this content made, do truly care about the art of making film and TV shows.
Absolutely. And I think that maybe my prickly nature comes in is that when people are creating a television show or they're in a band and they're making music or they're on a set and they're making a movie, so what did you do today? I created content. I don't think that when they go in a business capacity to make a film or make a television show, they feel like filmmakers or television producers. And that differential, I think that content is something that we as an audience can apply to it, but I think that the people who put the blood, sweat, and tears into it don't feel like content creators. They feel like filmmakers or musicians.
Right.
That's the differentiation, and maybe it's just my hang-up.
No, I agree. I think it's a connotation that we as the audience like superficially impose onto a Netflix or an Amazon, and it's easy for us to do that without really thinking about the people that slave away at making these things. And listen, nobody gets up every morning to make a film or TV show saying, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to make the worst fucking TV show I could possibly make today, or film, or music, or whatever it is." It just doesn't happen.
And I can tell you too, from film school, everybody who you're in class with thinks they're really good. But you can tell that a lot of them really aren't. They just don't. Yeah. It's like this aloofness, and that's I think where a lot of that is coming from. But yeah, they definitely have the passion for what they're doing. It's just that a lot of the times that you can't expect. It's like batting averages. You can't, like, if somebody who knew absolutely nothing about baseball were to look at the average and say, 0.3 out of what, they would think, oh, that's terrible. But no, it's not. And you could say the same thing about content. It's like a batting average. Yeah. You're not going to get the home runs all the time.
Edge of Time says, another good show. Keep having fun. Thank you, Edge of Time. That's what we're trying to do, and we hope you had fun too.
Thanks, buddy. And with that, I think we'll call it a show. Yeah. So for Catherine and Scotty R37, I am Steve Foley. Have a great day, everybody.
See you guys.
Bye.